Excuse me. All right.
Oh, it's my new profile picture.
Excellent. All right, yeah, so this story is called Fingernail Trimmings, right?
Oh my gosh.
And that's disgusting, right? Like, trimming fingernails is awful. But I happen to have two children. They're now 11 and 7, and it has been my very good fortune to trim their fingers and toenails for their entire lives. Right, yeah, you feel bad, but like, I hate fingernail clippings so much. Like, Laura mentioned teeth. If I see a loose tooth, I seriously have problems. One night I was actually here playing music, and Abby Gold, telling this really funny story. I've got to be careful because I might actually just fall down saying it. Telling this story about how she fell down when she was a kid and got a tooth knocked out. And as she's telling this story, she pulls out her tooth, and I'm like, and I was playing music. Like Laura's like, oh shit, Warren's done. Like, oh, it was bad. Okay, so. But I mean, I really don't like fingernail trimmings in particular. I don't know what the deal was if my parents just decided to keep like very not sharp or kind of rusty fingernail clippers in the house. But I hated to have my fingernails trimmed, and every time it happened, it felt like they were being ripped out from the core, and I would scream and I'd get really tense. And so I learned to bite my fingernails, and I don't have to get them trimmed anymore, right? That's a really good idea. Well, the toenails is another thing entirely. For some reason, that doesn't bother me quite as much. And it's a funny thing about fingernails, right? Like, fingernails are such a beautiful thing when they're attached to human beings. I mean, what is it? There's so many things that are physically very beautiful, and most of those things don't fall off of your body at some point, right? Or you have hair, that stays, and that's gorgeous, right? Men and women alike, it's really amazing. And as soon as that hair comes off of your body, there's nothing more vile and disgusting, right? And the same thing is true for fingernails. Like, have you ever stepped on a fingernail that was on the ground? Right. It's awful. So I'll keep talking about these things, really. So the funny thing about fingernail trimmings, like, I was really averse to them, but I had an experience with fingernail trimmings. That wasn't exactly pleasant. So I had this really rough childhood, this upbringing of not liking fingernail trimmings whatsoever. But I had an experience with fingernail trimmings that was, it seems maybe weird, but it was really transformative for me. So it turns out, when I was a senior in high school, it was the summer after my senior year in high school, my mom was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And she went through chemotherapy treatments for quite a while and seemed to be recovering. And then it came back, and it was very aggressive. And it spread to her stomach, and it spread to her intestines. And what happens very often is when you get cancer, like, cancer itself doesn't make your hair fall out. I mean, cancer will eat you and kill you. But cancer doesn't make your hair fall out, right? It's the chemotherapy that makes your hair fall out. The chemotherapy, the way it's always been explained to me, and I don't know if this is scientifically accurate because I'm a physicist and I'm not a biologist or a doctor, not a real doctor. But chemotherapy is built to attack fast-growing cells, right? Cancer is a fast-growing cell, and there are other cells in your body that grow really quickly. Your hair grows very quickly, and your fingernails and your toenails grow very quickly. And I came back for a visit, and this was in October of 1999, and my dad was having a really tough time because my mom had been sick, and because of the cancer in her intestines and in her stomach, she was no longer able to digest food. And so she lived the last 9 months of her life with a feeding bag that every day my dad would hook up this feeding bag intravenously. It was a little bag of like white, like creamy liquid stuff. And it was a lifesaver, like it really was. And it sustained her life for a long time because she was dying. She couldn't eat food. She couldn't digest food. Well, she could eat it, but she would throw it up if she ate anything because it wouldn't digest. And she had lost a lot of weight, and when she got on this bag, she was able to kind of recover a little bit. She gained some weight again. She looked a little more like herself. And my dad was amazing because my brother and I, we both lived in Missouri, and my mom and dad lived in Omaha, Nebraska. And my dad was always there. He was just doing it single-handedly. I mean, he was this stay-at-home nurse, and my dad is not, he's a wonderful guy for doing all these things, but he was not cut to do those kind of things. He was a computer scientist and a mathematician, and he taught in college, and he programmed and things like that. That's what he was built to do, and he hunted, and so like this was an amazing thing that he had done, and he would have done anything for my mom, I know. He told me the story once that it was time to hook up her intravenous bag for the day, and she kind of joked about saying that, like, how about you just do it today, you just get the IV today. And my dad replied back that he would, he would definitely do that. He would do anything, but he couldn't. And so it was kind of strange to me that when I came back in that October of 1999 to visit my mom, things were going downhill. She was starting to lose weight again, and the cancer, it wasn't done, right? It just keeps growing. And she asked me, she was bedridden, she could barely move, she was very, very weak, and so she spent all the time in my mom and dad's bed, kind of propped up on this styrofoam kind of triangle thing that was in the back of her. And she asked me if I would trim her toenails. And I was kind of horrified at first because I don't like that at all. I see myself up here and I'm literally like running my one fingernail under the other. And I said, yeah, I'll do that. And I'm a pretty nice guy these days. I'm a pretty compassionate guy. I try to do lots of work and volunteering and help others. But this was when I was 21. I wasn't me now. Like, I was kind of a jerk in a lot of ways. And so I feel bad because I said yes, right? I wasn't really excited about it. So she pulls the sheets off the bed. She swings her feet around. And I don't know, because my dad did so many things for her, but for some reason she must not have asked him to do this, because they had not been trimmed in a very long time. And they were long, and they were cracked and chipped, and it was horrible. Like, I was terrified. I was so scared, and I was almost like sick to see them, because they were already something that I did not want to see or do, but they looked like, I don't know, they were just so bad. But I trimmed them. And they didn't even trim like normal fingernails or toenails. They shattered, right? They just came apart. And every time I did it, I kind of went, I didn't want to yell, and I didn't want to I wanted to show her it was okay. I mean, my mom was an amazing woman, and she wasn't ever fancy, because we didn't have that kind of money, but she was always put together. She always looked amazing, and she was always so kind to everybody. Yeah. I mean, all the good things that I have in my life, and the person that I am now, I owe to my mother, because she was such a kind and warm person. And for her to be in that state, it must have been so humiliating, I think, for her, because it didn't look like mom, It wasn't put together like she always was. But I trimmed her toenails. And for a long time after that, I didn't think that this was an amazing thing. I thought it was pretty rough, and it was really sad. And she died 3 weeks later. And it was really the last time that I got to see her, and one of the last moments I got to really spend with her. And so I'm extremely, extremely grateful for that experience. That although I might not have been the most compassionate kid at the time, I showed a lot of compassion there, and I'm so glad that I could just share that moment with her. And the funny thing is that I never realized it until I had my own kids. And every time I trim their fingernails and their toenails, I get to think of her, and I get to think of that moment. And I'm very, very grateful. I think I'm very lucky to have had that chance.